Hello world, I'm Stean. I'm Norwegian, living in Switzerland with my Chinese wife and Canadian children in a French-speaking part, so it's all very international. My main business nowadays is running a vintage watch company called Vintage Watch Services. A very inventive name, I suppose. As part of that, I also do a lot of YouTube videos. And I have a massive incoming project in launching my own brand.
How did you started dealing with vintage watches or services then? How did you started with that, or how did you came to that field?
Probably as most, let's say, watch people, of course, have a deep interest personally in their watches. I remember when I was probably 12, 13 years old, I was very fascinated by a pocket watch at the local watchmaker in this little valley in Norway where I grew up. But I never really did anything about it until probably around 2007, I think, when I started really building up my personal collection of watches. And at one point I had 42 watches. And then I had to service one of them, and it cost me 300 something euros. And then doing the math was like, okay, 300, I think it was 330 times 42, okay. So that turned out to be quite a lot of money, so I decided to start learning it myself. So I enrolled in the British Horological Institute's distance learning program. And then sort of one thing led to another, and yeah.
Was that an official online course for watchmakers, or?
Yes, so the British Horological Institute is actually very old. And they used to have schools where they taught watchmaking. But, over the last few decades, watchmaking education has really, gone down in numbers, even though watch sales has gone up. So it's, it's a massive shortage of watchmakers. But what they did was to sort of repackage all of that into what they call a distance learning course, which is then, not online, but it's a set of lessons that are packaged into books or, thick binders, I suppose. And then the idea is that you do each lesson in 1 month. And at the end of the lesson, you also have some theoretical questions and some practical things to do. And then you do those in 3 different levels if you want to go all the way to eventually become a certified watchmaker. But you also have to take a lot of short courses and do a lot of practical work, because passing exams is really difficult, and you're not going to do that just by theory, of course.
And then you started to service your 42 watches, or?
Yeah. So as everyone else, what you do is you look on YouTube, right, to find some help as well. I also did a little bit of mentoring with a guy that's also a good friend of mine in the Netherlands, where I lived at the time. And you just have to start slow, just start on simple watches, try to be active in sort of communities where you can ask questions, learn more from more experienced people, and so on. The thing is that working on watches can be somewhat solitary. You're often sitting there by yourself and, working on a watch, getting in the zone, and just, doing work on tiny little mechanics. So trying to be part of a community, I found this is really important.
Okay. And was it easy to find the parts, for the watches? Can you buy them online, or? I've never asked. Yeah,
that's a good question. Yeah. There is a little bit of survival of the fittest in terms of watches. So if you find a vintage watch that is in good order, it's sort of a self-fulfilling thing that also means that it is a good quality watch most of the time, which also means that more of those will have survived. So we'll be able to find parts for quite a few. It's a little bit similar, but also very different from today's situation. So today you have movement makers like Selita, Etta, Soprod, those ones in Switzerland. Then you have Miyota, Seiko, and so forth, Japan. Those will sell you movements, and you can make your own watch brand. So that's, very easy today to start a market brand. Let's say 60, 70 years ago, it was the same kind of situation. It was very easy to start a brand, but you had instead of 3 or 4 in Switzerland, you had 20 probably movement manufacturers. So there will be quite a few watches where you find the same movement, but there's still a lot more variety, more diversity, if you want to know the watches. So it is getting more and more difficult to find parts for some of them, at least.
And after you started servicing your own watches, did you start to take customer watches or friends' watches, and then you started to sell your services? Or was it more like you started to dealing with watches, you bought some and you maybe repaired them and then you sold them?
Yeah, so what happened is I'm married. So my wife found out that I had 42 watches. And I was like, okay, enough. So she said I had to sell some of them or get rid of them. And then, so I was planning to sort of streamline my collection a little bit. It's not like I had a lot of very high value watches. Some were like a couple of Rolexes and a super nice Le Coulter Memo box. But probably the average price of my watches were only like 500-600 euros. So not like crazy. But what I did find out when I started to streamline it, selling off a few watches, was that I could make a little bit of money on it. So if I bought a watch for 400 euros, if I had serviced it, I could probably sell it for 600. So that sort of started that whole thing. At the time, this was also sort of, I'm not sure when I started selling off. That was probably 2016 or so. So I had already, done quite a lot of education. I lived in the Netherlands at the time and going over to the UK, to the BHI's headquarters, if you will, where they also have course centers. Maybe that's a little bit too fancy a word. It's like a small workshop room where there are always good professors. So I went over there quite a few times to do their short courses, which is either like a long weekend or a full week. So I already started having some, let's say, decent education behind it. Otherwise, I wouldn't feel comfortable, to sort of claim that I had serviced the watch. But what I found out was that I could make a little bit of money on it. So at some point, I started thinking, yeah, maybe I could, go a bit more deeper into this. So that's how that came about.
And when did you started to fully concentrate on that business?
That was in 2019. Yeah, 2019, so 6 years ago. Wow, time flies.
So, but you had to sell a lot of watches to make a living out of that, or?
Oh, yeah. So the thing is, I was, as we mentioned initially, I was working in, consulting and software sales. And the last job was for one of those unicorns, as I call it, in Silicon Valley. So basically a startup. This one was in a sort of scale-up phase that has a market valuation above 1 billion. So a startup that's, doing super well. So I got into that before the IPO, so I sort of got a little bit of buffer. When I left, I did not become super rich or anything, but I got a little buffer. And my wife also has a good job, so I sort of felt that, if I wanted to do anything about the watches, it was now or never. So, yeah, I decided to leave my corporate career behind and focus fully on watches.
And your friends, how did they react to that decision? Or your family,
Yeah. Well, my family's mostly my wife, to be honest, and my kids, because the rest of them are more or less passed away. Well, passed away. I have a sister in the US, but we're not that close. But no, my wife has been very supportive. The thing is, there's a lot of discussion, especially in American media and that sort of whole capitalist thing. They talk about success, right? Just now I read something, some guy was like, yeah, I'm a self-made billionaire. This is how you make success. So that basically means that success is measured in one thing only, and that's money. And, as Europeans, I think most of us at some level, to some degree, disagree with that. So I would say that as humans, given that we know that we're about to die at some point, I would say time is much more valuable than money. So, yeah, my salary dropped from, a good salary down to not so much when I started focusing exclusively on watches. But with a little bit of time, it's back up to a good level. And I have so much more time. I retooled our garage in Switzerland. So that's my workshop. My kids come by every day after school. That is success to me. That you have time for a good life, that you have a work-life balance. At the end of the day, if of course you need enough money, but at some point you're not going to be that much happier by earning more money.